Hello and welcome to this episode of Trash to Track. In this episode I'm going to be looking at remotoring this Lima 101 DMU that I bought several months ago. I bought it because of the brilliant weathering job and the fact that it's been detailed. There's a pipe missing off that end, but it's easily replaceable. But it's been detailed, fitted with people, and it's got a cracking weathering job on it, and it really does look nice. There's bogie footsteps there, all the pipe work's been put on, correct size buffers. It just is nice all round, and I'm going to replace the motor with one of these from Strathpether Junction. Now I've used these before, very good service from eBay. No association with this guy, but just a very happy customer, and the motors are very easy and simple to fit. So we're going to have a look at upgrading the motor in this, and I'm also going to DCC fit it and see if we can get it running on the railway. So the first thing I'm going to do is give these a dust over because they are quite dusty. They've been on the shelf for 6 to 8 months, and I bought this unit because I like the old bog units. That's what my granddad used to call them, old boggos. So and I hadn't got one that looked like this. I've wanted a 101 for ages. Now battery test, which is a bit fruitless really because we're going to replace the motor, but the battery test proved negative on this one. It just it wouldn't run. I think the wheels were quite dirty. So as usual with Lima, the brass wheels do attract the dirt. And what I'm also going to do on this model is I'm going to add additional pickups to the front bogie because as it stands at the moment it picks up from 2 wheels on the front and 2 wheels on the rear. The dummy car is just going to get a general dust over and clean up because obviously there's not a lot of work to go on that. Now to remove the body shell you have to unclip the 4 clips either side, and once you've unclipped it, it's not a simple case of lifting it off because the detail on the exhaust pipes on the rear, they curve around the buffers. So you have to be very careful. If you just try and yank this body shell off, you're going to snap the exhaust. Now, I'm sure there's a way of getting this off easily, which I didn't figure out at the time. So what I did was I ended up just getting the blunt scalpel and gently prising the exhaust off because they're only a push fit. So I prised these off gently, and once they were removed and out of the way, the chassis and body will separate. And as you saw, the weight fell out. There's the interior with the people glued in. And there's the bog standard Lima pancake motor, which we're going to be replacing. Now, like I said, it's got some people glued in here, so it looks quite good. Sparsely populated, as these DMUs were in Times and BR. So we'll put that back in the body shell for safekeeping. And then we'll have a look at the chassis. Now, there's a big old weight in there. And the front bogie is held on with the usual brass pinion and clip. So we'll drop that out first, and the first thing we'll do is add additional pickups to this. So unclipping it as usual with Lima, just unclip it and the wheels fall out, as does the pickups, etc. Now it doesn't really matter which way the wheels go back in because both are going to be collecting pickup. It's just going to matter as to how you wire them up correctly with the pickups on the rear bogie. So to add pickups, in my spares box I do have this pickup piece from an old Lima Class 25, and as luck would have it, this is exactly the size I need. It's going to rub on the wheel backs in the correct position. There's already a pre-drilled hole in it, and there's also a little bit of wire there, but I'll get rid of that and put some fresh wire on. So I'm going to screw that onto the side of that bogie there, and I'm going to drill out a small pilot hole, and I'm just testing it here. You can see it sits in there nicely, and both brass strips are pressing on the back of the wheels as they should be. So using a 0.5mm drill bit, I'm going to drill a hole through the into the bogie sides there, through those pickups, using it to act as a bit of a guide. And then I'm going to go in my screw tub, and I found this small silver self-tapping screw, and I think this is actually the screw that Bachmann used, so that was a bit of luck. And I'm going to fasten that on there, and that just threads itself through that small pilot hole we drilled. And that is the additional pickups added to the front bogie. All I've got to do now is solder a wire onto there, which in hindsight maybe I should have done before screwing it on. Then there's no danger of the heat damaging the plastic. But if you're careful enough, you don't need to worry about that. I've tinned the wire, as you can see here, and the pickup's already tinned. It's just a quick touch with the soldering iron, and that new piece of wire is attached with no damage to the plastic. So that's the bogie fitted with additional pickups. Now what I've got to do is I've got to drill a small pilot hole to the side of the main bogie attaching hole on the chassis here, and the new piece of wire will thread up through that. Turn it over and get rid of the flash with the scalpel blade. And now I'm going to turn my attention to the wheels. Now I'm going to polish these up because, like I said before, these were quite dirty. And you can see there just how shiny that's come up. These really were oxidized and covered in that black carbony deposits, you get from heavy running on railways. So I'm just scrubbing these up with a fiberglass pencil to bring them back to being nice and shiny. And then I am going to just rub over them with a cotton bud and meth to remove any stray fibres that may be there. And I'm also polishing the wheel backs because those new pickups now are going to be pressing on the wheel backs. They're going to be pressing on the insulated side of the wheels, and the insulated side you can see there with that black bushing. I don't think I said that earlier. I think I said it didn't matter, but it does, because otherwise if you don't put the wheels in correctly, they'll both pick up from the same rail. So putting the spring bit back in there, that's the pickups, and then the spring retainer goes in with the plug. That goes through the hole and is held in place with my left hand as I struggle to fit the wheels and keep a plate with my right hand. And that is all back together. You do have to make sure, like I said, I made an error earlier, you do have to make sure that the new pickups are on the insulated side of the wheels, and you can see them with the black insulating piece. Now what I'm also going to do to ensure good electrical connection, when this bogie has been reattached with this clip and pin method, just like that, which is usual for Lima, I'm actually going to attach those two and solder them together so that there's no danger of any loose joints, and again working very carefully so as to not transfer any heat to the plastic. I solder those two parts together. Now that will ensure good electrical conductivity, and it doesn't impede the bogie from turning at all. So the next thing to do is to upgrade this motor. Now to release the motor you need to undo the bogie frames, and they are released by the two screws underneath. Once the bogie frame's been removed and the screws have been removed, you can lift the motor out through the top, and there we go, it's come away. So I'm just going to desolder that wire, and then when it drops off any second, there we go. I'm going to get a tub and I'm going to unscrew this Lima motor directly into the tub, and this will go straight into my Lima spares parts because I don't need to service this at the moment. I'm not going to use it. So I'm going to put it into the tub as is. The motor faceplate, the commutator, brushes and springs, and the magnet all go in to this tub, and I'll keep them in case I ever need to use them in the future. And that is one good thing about Lima models, is the armature comes away with the drive cog, whereas on Hornby Ringfields they don't often do that. So just giving a clean up now for the middle of the motor, and you can see the gear train's quite dusty, so I'm going to give this a dust over. I'm not going to be removing these gears or anything, they look pretty clean, so I'm going to leave all those in situ. So now the new motor parts, we've got the 3D printed adapter and holder, which sits in the original motor housing like that, and will screw into place. And the new motor, I'll just remove that for now because that will need cleaning. And the new motor sits in that 3D printed housing and is pushed through, and there is the new motor pre-wired. So we're all good to go. Not that you can see it, but I'll just give that a test to make sure it's working. But it is working really well. And then you get two of these worm gears. These need trimming down to size, and you're supplied with two in case when you're trimming it you ruin it. But it will need trimming down a bit to fit the aperture. So now to put the motor together, when I stop dropping things, two wires are fed up through the hole in the top of the 3D printed mount. And then I line that up there, and the motor, make sure the wires aren't trapped, and the motor is a lovely snug press fit, and it took a little bit of force, but eventually you'll see I'm just checking there to make sure no wires are trapped. But eventually, there we go, it clips home, and that is the motor fully in the new motor cradle. And that's all in there nice. It's a very very good friction fit. So now what I'm going to have to do is fit one of these worm gears, I suppose they'd be called, and they are just a very, very tight friction fit. So I push the motor shaft onto that, and then give it a battery test, and you'll see it spinning there. You can see it spinning lovely and freely. So I give this a quick test, offer it up 2 or 3 times, and then gently prise the cog off again, and then use a very sharp scalpel, a fresh blade. Just roll it around, and you need to take about 1 millimetre or 2 millimetres at most off the end of that worm gear for it to get it to fit. There are probably different ways of doing this, but this is the way I've always done it, and it seems to work well. Once it's been cut down, refit it to that motor shaft. Now, the one thing I didn't do is feed those wires up through that hole there, but then in hindsight I don't think I needed to. But now that's in place, that should, there we go, that is turning all the gears, nothing is slipping, which means I've cut that gear correctly and it is in place. Now, one thing I will say, and I've said it before, you're probably bored of me saying it, is don't over tighten the screws. And this is especially so with this model, because if you try and over tighten them, you run the risk of cracking and damaging that 3D printed motor housing, and you really don't want to do that at this late state in the game. So that's all now been replaced, and the next thing I'll do is I'm running some power to the motor, and I'm polishing the wheels up on the drive bogie now, because these do pick up. I'm also going to replace those old Lima traction tyres with some replacements. I also polished the centre of the axles on this model, because the pickup plate rests on the axles as it goes along, so they need to be clean and clear of any grease and grime as well. There I am, just polishing the middle there with a cotton bud and meths now, and also the wheel treads to remove any debris or loose fibres left over from the fiberglass pencil. That's the pickup bit slid back in place, and these are the replacement traction tyres. Now I'm going to put some Labelle 106 grease on the drivetrain, because there was no lubrication on this model whatsoever. So a little bit of this Labelle 106 goes a long way. It's very, very good stuff. Quite dear, it's about £10 a tube, but it is worth it. It's probably the best grease I've ever used for modelling, and I will have to get some more. Another test now, it's been lubricated up and everything's in place, and that's all fitted and running lovely. So now I can refit this to the model. The pickup plate there will need a quick clean. This has had a little bit of dirt and gunk that had built upon those axle pickups over the years. So this was cleaned off with a cotton bud and meths, and then it was polished up with the fiberglass pencil, just so that the brass is nice and shiny. So once that's done, and I don't know why I didn't cut this out to be a bit shorter, but I obviously left it in for some reason. But once that's all done, this just slides back in underneath those 2 wheels on the motor bogie there, and fresh wire replaced that old black piece of wire that came from the Lima factory. So that's it, just slides in there, and that's actually held in place with the screws that go through from the bogie casting into that motor block. It can be quite tricky to put these back together, this Lima stuff, because all the brass is very springy, and it doesn't often go where you want it to. But now the motor is back through the chassis, and the bogie frames are put on. Now the observant will know, or notice, that I've put the motor in backwards there. I've put the motor in the wrong way round. But I do rectify this very shortly, and also what you'll see me do in a minute is you'll see me wire it up. But I haven't replaced the wire from the pickup on this bogie. But I did notice, just before I went to put the body on during filming, I did notice my error, and I change it all around. But for now, you will see me go through the process of now fitting a decoder to this model. So the weight goes back in, and the wires from the pickups on the front bogie are put in, and these are held in place underneath the seating unit. This is clipped back in like so. That just holds in place with the clips, and that keeps the wires nice and tidy and out of the way. Now I've DCC fitted it. I've still not realised my mistake, but it's DCC fitted now with a Stay Alive from AE Models, as you can see. And I go to put the body on. Obviously DCC fitting I've been through before. Red and black wires off the decoder are track pickup. Orange and grey are going to the motor. And when I put the body on, you can see the decoder wires through the window, which was a bit of a letdown. So when I take the body off, and now you can see I've refit the motor the correct way around and added that purple wire. This bit here is the pickup that I missed off. So now it's all correctly wired, and the motor bogie is in the correct way round. It's time to refit that seating unit and refit the body shell. And I actually wrap the wires in black insulating tape so that you can't see them through the windows. It's just black, so that's not too bad now. Now this model has had a few of the detail parts fall off in its time it's been in storage with me. So I'm just going to put these cab footsteps back on just with a tiny piece of Loctite super glue. They're pushed into the holes in the body side, into the bogie side, and I make sure they're complete. And there's also one fallen off the dummy car, so I'm going to replace that now as well. Now for their age, these models are very highly detailed. They're not going to be as high fidelity as the new Bachmann model, but for the price I paid for this, which I think was around about £50, you're not going to go wrong with this. This is a fantastic model for that price, and it's even better now. It's got a superior motor in it. Whoops, backwards and then forwards on the battery test, and it is running lovely. It's very quiet, very smooth, and those additional pickups on the front as well as that Stay Alive will ensure very good running. Now the real only work to do on the trailer coach was to clean the wheels up, because these had a build-up of carbon on them and dirt, and if you don't clean it off, all you'll end up doing is transferring this muck and dirt to your own railway tracks, and you'll have to clean it eventually. So it's worth just polishing them up. And you can see here, just by working that with a fiberglass pencil, the shine I've managed to achieve on that wheel compared to the one on the left just shows how much dirt is actually on these wheels. Now I know the brass wheels are prone to collecting dirt, but that was ridiculous. I mean, there was so much dirt on these wheels, it was unreal. So now I've cleaned all the wheels on the dummy car. As you can see, they're all shining like a new pin, and it's time to probably go and take it over to the layout and give it a spin. Now, as I was saying, these units are lovely. The detail on them is correct. Unlike the new Hornby version, which has just been released, these have got correct size buffers on them. The new Hornby release has got tiny buffers, nowhere near prototypical. And this one is going, one way is going to Percy Street and the other is going to Morpeth. So the unit is lost really on my layout, which is based in the southeast of England. It's lost a bit, but there you can see I've refitted those exhausts and everything now as well on these units. Haven't taken the bodies off. Now what I'm just going to do now, before we see it running around, I'm just going to give you a demonstration on the slow speed running of these Strathpether motors under DCC. And as you can see, look at that, that is very controllable. That's speed step 2. I'll just reverse it. And that smooth running is fantastic. Now during filming I never noticed that big spider on the back there. It's funny how you notice it when it's finished, but when I was actually running the layout I never saw that. But you will have to agree that is really good and smooth running, and it's far superior to anything I was going to achieve with a Lima motor. If you've got an engine or anything you'd like to see featured on a future episode of Trash to Track, please email me at dansmodelrailways@gmail.com. Have a look at getting it sent over, and who knows, it may even feature in an episode all of its own. I'll leave you now watching this remotored DMU running around the layout. I hope you'll agree it's a vast improvement, and this is really a lovely model fit for modern running. Thanks for watching Trash to Track. Please like, share and subscribe, and I will catch you again in the next video. Bye for now.